Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today, talking about Star Citizen drama and debunking some of the more dramatic, sensationalist Star Citizen articles, critiquing them somewhat. Some of the points are actually good and reasonable. Some are just totally incorrect and demonstrably untrue. And I thought I would let rip with my opinions on some of these articles, which I actually preempted recently in a video, saying they were going to happen just before they were posted, as the gaming news outlets in question seem to follow the same predictable cycle with Star Citizen. So let's take a look at some of this so-called news. From Polygon, we have Star Citizen single-player campaign misses beta window, doesn't have a release date. That headline is actually sort of correct. It doesn't have a release date, but they did say they weren't going to internal beta this year for Squadron 42, and that was in fact reiterated again on October 10th by Chris Roberts, saying we've got a way to go before we're in beta, but everyone on Squadron 42 is working hard to deliver something great. So at best, that's sort of old news, but it looks to me like it was just sort of aimed at Star Citizen clickbait. That's just my opinion though, but this has led to a flurry of other articles. Most of them just say pretty much exactly the same thing, that it's missed its release date, Star Citizen doesn't have any release dates at the moment, and it's made lots and lots of money, and lots of people spend lots of money on the game, and lots of people are angry. And some of those sources are a bit dubious to the angry people, although I'm sure there are some very annoyed people that are genuinely annoyed, and probably rightly so. Star Citizen developer unveils new roadmap, cancels Squadron 42 beta. Okay, so that's the Squadron 42 beta that was originally planned for 2020, because they wanted to be in a state where they were beta ready, was not a public-facing beta. It's not going out to people. It's not like, oh, finally Squadron 42 is now playable. It's just an internal sort of mark of, yeah, the game is now feature complete, but not content complete. And yeah, it's a major milestone for the game, for sure. It's important that they get there, but they didn't cancel Squadron 42 beta. That's a ridiculous statement. However, there was a very interesting article from Yahoo News, which had this amazing title: "Gamers feel cheated by this $339 million video game after another delay. The greatest scam in gaming history." That's a beautiful headline. The article states Star Citizen has $339 million in funding and 10 years of development. So, but there's no release date in sight. Again, no release date in sight is correct. That's true. There are no release dates for Star Citizen beyond they are in a playable alpha state, and every 3 months, so they release a major update that you can actually play in game. But the Kickstarter was actually at the end of 2012, so that's 8 years of development, and I think that Star Citizen has raised closer to $430 million to date, so actually a lot more if you take into account private investment, other sources, and subscriber revenue. You say, why are you saying it's more? Well, it is more. It's accurate. It states the Kickstarter was in 2010, which is wrong as well. It says Squadron 42 was announced in 2015. It was actually announced in 2012, though the 2016 release date, Answer the Call, was announced in 2015, which obviously was delayed. The article goes on to say that Star Citizen is possibly the most expensive game of all time. Well, it's actually 2 games they're building, but I say you could actually argue that it is and will be the most expensive consumer game of all time. I suppose you could also argue, from a different point of view, that World of Warcraft, with its continuing updates and continuing staff costs and game costs, is the most expensive game to date, as it requires continuing updates and servers, a huge amount of staffing, though I do think it also, during its heyday, was making over $1.2 billion a year, don't quote me on the exact figure, I think it was around that. But if we're talking development-wise, before a tangible, actual, on-the-shelf release, yeah, I would actually probably argue that Star Citizen is the most expensive game being made to date. I think GTA 5 was like $265 million estimated, and Cyberpunk was around $320 million to develop, though I'm not sure if that includes marketing for Cyberpunk or not. But this article sources the previous Polygon article as the source for the beta being delayed and being stuck in alpha for 10 years. And that's a common thing here. These articles source each other, and one outlet will write an article, and then all the others will write almost an identical article, sometimes with a slight headline change, slightly more sensationalist or whatever. But this then moves on to showing some comments on Reddit to help back up the narrative of the article. What an amazing scam this game is, said a Reddit user. Hundreds of millions of dollars donated with nothing to show for it. The greatest scam in gaming history. They are perpetually developing in order to keep the cash flow going because they know they won't ever make any more money if it releases. So what is this? Can I just look at people's Reddit comments and report them as news? Can I have that as just an idea for a channel? Can I say this is representative of the community as well, of all gamers, or the wide selection of gamers? Actually, I've done a quick cursory YouTube search. There does appear that a lot of channels literally do that. Wow, that's a good idea for a channel. Perpetually developing the game. What a statement. You mean currently developing the game as opposing to stopping developing the game or just releasing it? They do release something every 3 months. It might be a slow development, but they're not ready to release. You'd go, well, if they weren't getting money, everything would be better and they'd release something. No, it would not be better. They would release something half done and it would not be good. And then they'd go, see, I told you. What did you tell me? You told me to stop getting the money and that they'd release something. So it's going to be like another 5 years, in my opinion, before we get something Star Citizen that is on the shelf release. And I think that's probably optimistic. There's going to be at least 18 months to 2 years before a Squadron 42 release, it seems, at the moment as well. Another beautiful quote here is, the poor sods who have actually invested in this game love paying for a house that will never get finished. And they will defend their shitty, incomplete house. Years from now, researchers are going to have a field day studying the intense sunk cost fallacy of the Star Citizen community. So there are a few things I often see from the sort of typical media outlets that cover Star Citizen more sensationalist-wise, and the random critiques on forums and mainly Reddit, but not just Reddit, and I'm not disparaging Reddit, people have their own opinions and things. They basically cite themselves and or previous articles as source material, or the same article is written by a whole chain of outlets with no further fact-checking or research, and this leads to lots of incorrect facts and lots of anecdotes and info stated or suggested as fact that is just demonstrably not. Loads of analogies, though that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a common characterization I'm making. There's lots of use of the word scam and sunk cost fallacy. Money and development times are represented incorrectly or sort of like skewed to be more sensationalist. Now, let's not beat around the bush with that. Like, Star Citizen makes a lot of money for a game that's yet to be properly released. It is alpha playable, but that's not a mainstream released game. They are developing a game, and it's taken a long time. Their development cycle is long, and it's going to be a lot longer. That is a totally fair critique when you go and look at those things. But I just say that a lot of people also misrepresent a lot of figures and get annoyed when people spend a lot of money on the game, which is weird, telling people that they're totally taken in with sunk cost fallacy, or they shouldn't be having fun and spending tens of thousands of dollars. Well, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be spending tens of thousands of dollars if you can't afford it, for sure. But if you're an IT professional or someone with a huge amount of money, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. I'm not your dad. Delays. Even when there are none. So don't get me wrong, again, Star Citizen has had lots of delays and it's missed the mark with a lot of things. But them having a roadmap with targets on it and then saying that we're not going to hit all of these features, well, in these sort of like targeted areas, that shouldn't then have delays constantly plastered everywhere when they go, well, it didn't make that time period, it didn't make Q4, it's going to be next year. Maybe it should. Maybe it's a fair sort of critique of that. I don't know. As far as I am concerned, I look at the targets for the roadmaps and I will say this is the target for the roadmap, this is what they've got planned for a particular patch, knowing that some of those parts might move, and then I report on it and talk about it when they do move. Sort of, I'm okay with that. I think that part of CIG and the roadmap is transparent at times, and sometimes they miss the mark with communication. But maybe people are right to comment regularly on delays. Maybe that's an actual fair thing to comment on. A lot of the criticism that Star Citizen gets, especially from sort of the media sensationalist type, people would call hit pieces, comes from a place of, I don't understand this community. That pretty much sums it up to me. People don't share the same passion or interests looking at something they don't understand and saying it's dumb or this is absurd. I am in a similar frame of mind for football and cars. Not that enthusiasts of that are dumb, but it's I don't get it. And it does appear that this is an external to the community thing largely. Not entirely. I'm sure that some people have played Star Citizen or hate Star Citizen or don't like Star Citizen anymore or are genuinely upset at the development. That's fair. But a lot of people are just, they have no interest in Star Citizen or have not wanted to play Star Citizen, and they comment on Star Citizen as a project as this stupid thing, like how this is ridiculous. And I mean, it's got a pretty big community, Star Citizen, so there's going to be some people that are part of it that dislike it as well, and that's fine. I think other people's opinions on Star Citizen's development is typically a good thing, though. You don't want an echo chamber, you want a nice hodgepodge or melting pot of opinions and conversation, preferably in a constructive or at least civil manner. However, I'm part of a lot of gaming communities. I'm part of a lot of Reddits. I look on the Apex or Overwatch subreddit. There's a lot of angry people that don't like each other on there. I think you get that in all communities that get to a certain size. You get a percentage of people there that are angry or that will just shitpost or whatever. And I don't think Star Citizen's community is any different from that. I would say that I genuinely think the Star Citizen's community overall is fantastic and one of the best, if not the best, gaming community I've been part of. And you could go, shill, you know, that's genuinely what I believe. But there are so many actual reasonable things to be annoyed at Star Citizen for that should be critiqued, that I get annoyed when people just scream scam or just go off on a weird tangent or use some weird anecdotal evidence that this is why Star Citizen is bad and sunk cost fallacy. So things like the flip-flopping over Squadron 42 development updates, and the lack of Squadron 42 updates in general, choosing not to show gameplay for it, after saying that they were going to, now deciding they're not because it's not close enough to release. That's a bit annoying. I want to know more, I don't want to know less. It's got a long development cycle, the game. There are no release dates. There's been a huge amount of feature creep, though that is massively contributing to the long development time, and a lot of people actually do want that. But as I said, these are things to critique and talk about, and you can have a problem with for sure. Communication of the devs, because it is erratic. Sometimes it's fantastic and super transparent, and other times it is oddly obscured and confusing. Long-term funding after release. There probably needs to be a big conversation about that, beyond they're just going to sell in-game currency. Is that pay to win? It could be, it might not be, even if it is, because it sort of is, because at the very least it gives you an advantage in-game, a time advantage. Are pay to win games always going to be flawed in the fact that they're going to become terribly overburdened with micro and macro transactions? Well, hopefully not. I don't think all pay-to-win games will necessarily be bad, and I do think that it is the way that Star Citizen does its monetization model, and it wouldn't be a game like Star Citizen without doing the way it's doing its monetization. If you see what I mean, long-winded, but there's certainly a good level of critique and argument that you can do there for why some of that's a bad thing. The tech for server meshing, what if it doesn't work? The artificial scarcity of the marketing and monetization practices and FOMO for ships. Can Star Citizen ever live up to its hype? There are a load of questions there that are fine to critique Star Citizen on and are reasonable questions. But asking CIG questions about Star Citizen and holding them to account for certain decisions is a good thing. It helps keep the project honest and on track. But shouting at people, calling them dumb for enjoying a game, or saying that it's a scam, that's demonstrably wrong, in my opinion. I look at some articles and comments and think, is this malicious in its representation? Or is it just ignorance? Or is it an entirely different view of the situation that I just don't share at all or can't get my head around? I suspect it's somewhere in the middle with a whole lot of personal bias going on there as well. Maybe it's just whatever is the most sensational headline in some of the cases for these articles, and it's not even malicious. It's just sort of like, well, this will get clicks. Star Citizen's not out yet, is it? Delayed, bam. But what do I know? I love Star Citizen and the project, and I'm looking forward to what it brings in the future. But I would say that because I've been covering the game for like 6 years now. Star Citizen doesn't need me to defend it, nor is it my job to do so. You can decide that you're interested in the game or not. Maybe there's too many red flags for you, and maybe you're waiting for it to be released in a few years. But If you are actively telling people that they are dumb for enjoying it or having fun with it or it's a scam, then I'd say you're just wrong. But whatever, man. People that spend $10,000 or more on the game or something like that, yeah, I mean, that is weird. Especially seeing that you only need a game package to play and you can get everything in-game. But then again, if I had bucket loads of cash and I wanted the game to be completed, I wanted to fund something that I thought was beautiful, then maybe I would buy more spaceships. I have spent over $3,000 on spaceships just for me. Maybe I'm part of the problem. But what do you think? Do various media outlets just cycle through Star Citizen hit pieces? Are people saying scam representative of the gaming community at large? Do you think I'm a paid shill for Star Citizen? Because I'm not, and you'd be wrong. But they do throw spaceships sometimes my way for giveaways. That is true. With that in mind, you should comment on this video to be in for a chance of winning one of 5 Star Citizen game packages and ships. We have a 100 series giveaway, so the 100i, 125a, and 135c with game packages, and a Talon and a Shrike, their new bird Tavaran ships, all going out to 5 separate winners in January. So comment to be in for a chance of winning that on any of my videos made during January. I do shill for NordVPN, and if you don't want some guy to know all of your credit card details and what you've got in your search history, because you don't want them to know your search history, then you might want to consider it. It's effective, cheap, and well, it's a VPN. Links below for a discount. Please consider liking, subscribing, and using the YouTube join button to help support my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.